Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Whether or not he is guilty of assault, it's a credibility contest about whether or not someone should be elevated to the highest position of integrity in our society. Lynn joins me now by phone. Lynn, can you hear me?
I can, Chris. Thanks.
Lynn, full disclosure, we've spoken before. I wanted you to come on. You said you didn't want to, weren't comfortable with it, too much pressure. But then you watched today and you changed your mind. Why?
I'll tell you, Chris, I watched the whole hearing, and a number of my Yale colleagues and I were extremely disappointed in Brett Kavanaugh's characterization of himself and the way that he evaded his excessive drinking questions. There is no doubt in my mind that while at Yale, he was a big partier, often drank to excess, and there had to be a number of nights where he does not remember. In fact, I was witness to the night that he got tapped into that fraternity, and he was stumbling drunk in a ridiculous costume, saying really dumb things. And I can almost guarantee that there's no way that he remembers that night. And it's unfair that he kept flipping the questions to, but I studied real hard, but I played sports. All of us in that circle played sports. In fact, both Liz Swisher and I played 2 sports. We were on varsity in both sports and were starters. And drinking to excess was the big thing on Saturday night. So it wasn't every night, it was one night. And it's just really disappointing. There were a lot of emails and a lot of texts flying around about how he was lying to the Senate Judiciary Committee today.
All right, so Lynn, let's give him the benefit of all possible doubt, right? Let's take the lowest minimum standard of what he has to own. What if he says, I was only talking about in high school. In college, it was totally different. Then I blacked out all the time. I drank to excess all the time. I shouldn't have done it. But in high school, never. Would you believe that? You weren't with him in high school.
No, but the Ralph Club, the 100 kegs, those aren't, and weak stomach, that's not a weak stomach question. Those are, look, I don't have anything in my yearbook, but if I had stuff in my yearbook, it would be about partying.
So when you heard that today, you felt that the picture that he painted of himself is false.
I felt when I saw his Fox News interview that picture was false. He then took that testimony and submitted it as is in the record to the Judiciary Committee, and I thought today that he evaded questions, and he kept trying to turn the question around to, but I studied really hard. Well, you know what? I studied hard, too. I went to Wharton Business School. I did very well at Yale. I also drank to excess many nights with Brett Kavanaugh. The two things are not mutually exclusive.
Now, Chris Dudley of Yale and NBA fame, or certainly he's known for playing in the NBA, he painted a different picture of Kavanaugh. He was a high-integrity character judge for Judge Kavanaugh. What do you make of his assessment? Why so different from yours?
Well, I can tell you I didn't go to as many parties with Chris Dudley, but I do remember one party in particular where both Brett and Chris Dudley were very drunk, and they thought it would be really funny to barge into a room where a guy and girl had gone off together and embarrass that woman. Chris Dudley was, I believe, the one that went in under the egging on of Brett Kavanaugh, and they thought it was funny. The girl was mortified, and I was furious. So I'm not sure he's the best character witness.
Now, look, not that this matters, but again, it's about the truth of what he says about himself. This is not a trial about guilt or innocence. It's a job interview. It's a credibility measurement for the highest integrity position we have. And I have to tell you, I don't believe it's disqualifying to have partied in high school or in college. But him telling the truth about himself is a more relevant standard. Was Brett Kavanaugh known at Yale as a virgin?
I have no idea.
I just want to know, because that's something he points out about himself that I know, having gone to the same school. And it's not so big a school. It's got a big name, but it's not that big a community. It's pretty small. It's the kind of thing that would have been known. So at the end of the day, when you heard Christine Ford and what she accused Brett Kavanaugh of, you have never said to me or anything I've read from you that you saw him as being that kind of person. So what do you want people to know about the range of assessment that's being made about him?
So here's what I would say. That I agree with you. I don't think a person should go on trial for drinking in either high school or college, and I did both. But I will say it is about the truth. And then I will say this about lying. Lying is never good. It is never appropriate, and it always comes with consequences. And while I can't speak to Brett, I will tell my two boys that lying is never good. And also, as their coach, I will tell them that winning isn't everything. It should be about how you play the game. And that's, I think, why many athletes at Yale were incredibly disappointed with the performance today. And quite frankly, the blatant lying.
Also important to note, you're a Republican, yes?
I am a Republican.
And Brett Kavanaugh is somebody that you regard, in terms of his intellectual success, his intellectual capacity, and what he's done on the bench. You see those as very meritorious things in his pedigree, yes?
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to be clear about the balance of your assessment. Lynn Brooks, I told you not to wait when I spoke to you before. I told you if you waited too long, it gets harder to make an impact on this process. But I am grateful for you coming in now on this very important evening.
It is Friday, the 28th of September of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life. And I have one more question for you. Don't you like beer? Haven't you ever drank beer to excess? Well, here at the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, we like all sorts of those kinds of imbibing solutions. But we honor the French 77, which one never drinks to excess. Because if you do, you might pull a Kavanaugh. Yeah, don't do that. And when I say a Kavanaugh, I mean that's a blackout. And it could knock you over, and you better be careful. So I would say no more than 2 through a long evening. Okay? Well, maybe 3, but you're not moving after 3. Trust me. All right. Well, that was something to behold. Apparently, in this topsy-turvy world of ours, the testimonies of even the captain of the Yale women's lacrosse and field hockey teams, Lynn Brooks. The Lynn Brooks. Yeah. She partied hardy with Brett, and he lied from beginning to end about his drinking and behavior at Yale. I should add he also lied about when Kamala Harris asked him, have you watched any of Dr. Ford's testimony. He immediately said, no, I wanted to, but I didn't. No. And he had, there's pictures of him watching a monitor. So, pathological much? Which apparently is exactly the kind of world we live in. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, composed, respected, completely within her element, gracious as can be. And she's called the crazy one. After this guy was a blubbering idiot. Literally a sniveling liar. That's not a metaphor. That's not a poetic description. He was literally a sniveling liar. But that's what we're going to get on the Supreme Court. I'm just going to go to a floor vote, and that's just the way it's going to be. Oh, and you do know the definition of flake. Yeah, someone who promises that they're going to help you out, and they never show up. Okay, thanks, Jeff. What's on the rest of the menu here? At West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe on this fabulous Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Don't you feel it? Well, a computer traced to the House of Representative offices attempted to edit the Wikipedia entry for Devil's Triangle to match what Kavanaugh claimed. Well, they've said right out in the open, we make a reality, and while you're reacting to that reality, we're off making another reality, which is just a nice way of saying we lie our asses off, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. And then I would say, well, if there's nothing we can do about it, why lie? Jesus. The GOP nominee for governor of Pennsylvania lost $631,000 in campaign money betting on the stock market. Yeah, well, keep doubling down. That'll work. And speaking of doubling down, the SEC sued Elon Musk for fraud as it seeks to remove him from Tesla. Maybe they should send him to Mars. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Fifth Circuit upheld a Louisiana restriction on abortion clinics that is similar to the one the Supreme Court struck down in Texas 2 years ago. Yeah, you just keep putting them up in the docket, and pretty soon you're going to get like a Kavanaugh on there, and it'll work. It'll work then. Nice. Hey, Justin Trudeau says Canadians are tough negotiators, and he has a Poutine trade surplus to prove it. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You will notice how beautiful the page is, by the way, and thank you, Tom, for that. And you will notice some scrolls there in which you can find out if you are registered to vote. And if you are not registered to vote, there is a link there in which you can become registered to vote. Please do. It's important. All right. If you then scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you'll notice the chat room link on the rightish of the page, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. And do check out her show tomorrow, Saturday, At the Table with Kelly Lincoln. That begins at 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. on the East Coast. And then later on, she teams up with Ricky for the Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour. And they command that block from 9 p.m. on the West Coast, midnight on the East Coast for about an hour because it's a power hour. Yeah, they pack it in. All right, you can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Follow us on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. And also, very important that you check out the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes, where I can be found as Justice Putnam. And you can follow the show on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Cookbook West. And I did fail to mention that there is a contribute button to the leftish of the chat room link. Do please become a Patreon to Netroots Radio. Your generosity keeps the lights a-blinking on the modem, and that's very important. So thank you for your generosity. Okay, let's see. Pick up podcasts of the show by way of iHeart, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Well, okay, so they pushed Kavanaugh right through, basically put their hands over the mouths of the Democrats and turned the music up. Unbelievable. I've always hated Grassley anyway, from way back from in the day, when the way they were with Anita Hill and in fact, I termed it the attack of the dweebs then, and we are still being attacked by the dweebs now. Ooh, it's like rust. Well, Sarah K. Burris from Raw Story brings us this first offering here. In the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh said that the Devil's Triangle was a drinking game, but nowhere on the internet is that term used in association with a drinking game. That was until a person using a congressional IP address tried to create one. According to the tracking account Congressional Edits, which monitors such Wikipedia edits from such IP addresses, Devil's Triangle was edited anonymously from the House of Representatives on Thursday at, that would be, right around the time that Kavanaugh was testifying. Now, according to the Urban Dictionary, as well as Wikipedia and other sites, a devil's triangle is a sexual term used to describe places someone penetrates a woman during intercourse. A later edit of the term included a threesome. Now, there is a game called beer pong, Triangle Rules, but Kavanaugh compared it to quarters, not beer pong. Matthew Chapman of Alternet brings us this next offering here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Bistro Cafe. The Republican nominee for governor of Pennsylvania, former state rep and waste management executive Scott Wagner, has had a lot of clumsy moments, from telling a reporter he would have to ask his wife before talking about birth control, to calling a climate activist who asked him a question young and naive, to privately telling a gun-toting cult he agrees with them 98% of the time, to saying he can't release his tax returns because his workers might start a union drive if they knew how much he made. Wagner provokes controversy on a regular basis. Welcome to America. But it is not just his words and beliefs that call into question Wagner's judgment. The way he has handled his campaign finances is also bizarre and disastrous. According to campaign filings uncovered by Daily Kos writer Adam Bonin, over the last 3 months, Wagner has lost $631,000 investing his campaign funds in a brokerage account. Furthermore, according to Bonin, a filing this spring shows an even bigger investment loss of over $1,450,000 U.S. As Bonin notes, to be sure, there are also reports which show gains, but it's utterly irresponsible for a candidate to be investing campaign funds in the first place. It's too risky and too volatile. Plus, the tax implications of earned income in a campaign account are a mess. Andrew Romeo, or is that Romeo? A spokesman for the Wagner campaign stressed that Wagner had only invested the money he had self-funded, not campaign contributions from donors. Well, wait a second. If you put it in one pocket and steal it, and then steal it to put it in another, come on. Now we know how he runs his business and why he doesn't want his workers to know what's happening. Okay? I mean, wouldn't you? Jeez. The biggest irony is that the stock market has actually done fine this year, and he lost money. So it's unclear what investments caused Wagner's brokerage account to perform so poorly. Wagner is challenging incumbent Democratic Governor Tom Wolf. All 5 of the most recent polls of the race aggregated by 538 show Wolf ahead by double digits. Here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, on this Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life. Here, have a French 77. It is indeed the most balanced cocktail in the history of cocktails. And, don't you like French 77s? Don't you? Yikes. Oh, yes, and they are supposed to be, the party of values. Well, they do have a meeting called the Value Summit, and because that's as much values as they're going to get. They're going to hit that summit, and oftentimes that summit isn't very high. Apparently not. Maybe they should call it the Summit Valley meetings. Yeah. This last article is out of Reuters. Jonathan Stemple and Alexandria Sage bring it to us. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission accused Tesla chief executive Elon Musk on Thursday of fraud and sought to remove him from his role in charge of the electric car company, saying he made a series of false and misleading tweets about potentially taking Tesla private last month. Well, maybe he was high on pot. I don't know. Pot doesn't do that to you. In a lawsuit, the regulator described Musk surprising members of his own team and his investors with a series of tweets, starting with the August 7 announcement that he was thinking of taking Tesla private. 12 minutes after the first tweet, Tesla's head of investor relations texted Musk's chief of staff to ask whether Musk's announcement was legit, the SEC said. Musk, age 47, is the public face of Tesla, and losing him would be a big blow for the money-losing car maker, which has a market value of more than $50 billion, chiefly because of investors' belief in Musk's leadership. The Department of Justice, which has the authority to press criminal charges, has also questioned the company about Musk's tweets. The company said this month that Tesla shares tumbled 12% in after-hours trading. Okay. Ellen is Tesla, and Tesla is Ellen. And that's great when Ellen is scoring touchdowns and grand slams, but not so great when there are negative things tied to him, said Carl Brower, executive publisher at car research firm Kelley Blue Book. Yeah, that Kelley Blue Book. Musk said he had done nothing wrong. This unjustified action by the SEC leaves me deeply saddened and disappointed, he said in a statement. Integrity is the most important value in my life, and the facts will show. I never compromise this in any way. Really, integrity? I wonder what your ex-girlfriends and wives have said about that. Tesla's board said they are fully confident in Musk, and why wouldn't they? The SEC's lawsuit, filed in Manhattan federal court, taps a tumultuous 2-month set in motion on August 7th, when Musk told his more than 22 million Twitter followers that he might take Tesla private at $420 per share with funding secured. On August 24th, after news of the SEC probe had become known, Musk blogged that Tesla would remain public, citing investor resistance. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday that the SEC filed the lawsuit after a proposed settlement with Musk fell apart. The SEC did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In its lawsuit, the SEC said Musk calculated the $420 price per share based on a 20% premium over the day's closing share, and because of the number's slang reference to cannabis. Oh, 420. See, I told you. The lawsuit, which cites emails and text messages between Musk and Tesla executives, quoted Musk as saying he thought his girlfriend would find it funny, which is admittedly not a great reason to pick a price. Well, they live in a different world than we do, don't they? After the initial tweet, Tesla's chief financial officer asked Musk if would it help if executives drafted a blog post or employee email to explain his tweet, and Musk responded, yeah, that would be great. Musk had not discussed the $420 figure, $420, with any potential funding source before he broached the subject to Tesla's board in an August 2 email, the SEC said. Wow, this guy's in hot water. All right. We better get on to our break, and when we come back, we'll go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Deal Gone Bad. A week or so before White Boy Rick hit screens across the country, some news outlets were prompted to do pieces on an outrage that isn't top of mind for most people. Federal informants, sometimes juveniles, abandoned by the agencies they've helped and left languishing in prison. Unfortunately, moral outrage doesn't a great movie make. White Boy Rick is set in dystopian Detroit at about the time of the crack epidemic of the 80s, and the story is mostly a biopic of the teenaged Rick and his black market weapons-dealing dad, Richard. Doing business primarily with drug dealers eventually puts young Rick in a position of having himself and his family in legal jeopardy, which leads to cooperating with authorities, which eventually leads to Rick's incarceration. White Boy Rick is ambitious. It's a true crime drama, it's a character study, and it's social commentary, all crammed into less than 2 hours. Given the first of these facets, Matthew McConaughey was probably the first name on castings list, and he does a fine job. But despite the billing, he's in a supporting role. Newcomer Richie Merritt as young Rick is a more questionable call as the lead. He's either meticulously worked with his character to portray a wooden, inarticulate, out-of-his-league adolescent, or he actually is one as an actor. Time will tell. Bruce Dern and Piper Laurie as Rick's grandparents are as close as the movie gets to comic relief. Belle Powley stands out as Rick's junkie sister. It's the social commentary dimension which gets short shrift here and begs the question of whether the whole thing would have been better as a documentary. The financial and human costs of the situations like that portrayed in White Boy Rick deserve more attention than this project provides. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. If there's a fifth Indiana Jones movie, Indy might want to use one of the hottest new tools revolutionizing archaeology, LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, which allows archaeologists to survey ancient sites from the skies.
Think of an impressionistic painting. The closer you look at the painting, you see the brush strokes. When you pull away, suddenly it's obviously the face of a woman in a park or something. Your brain can sort of interpolate the stuff better at a certain distance.
Marcello Canuto, an archaeologist at Tulane University.
LiDAR allows us to see all these small little features that close up look like little pixels of data that we're not sure what to do with, but when you zoom out, oh, there it is, clear as day.
The technology works a lot like radar, but it shoots laser pulses instead of radio waves to 3D map a landscape. In 2016, it was used to map over 800 square miles of Guatemalan jungle, including the area around the famous tourist site Tikal. Canuto remembers when he and his colleagues first saw the footage.
1 hour went into 2, went into 3. We just lost track of time. It got dark outside. We were just open mouthed. We couldn't believe what we could be seeing.
What they discovered after careful analysis were buildings in areas they'd already excavated and big landscape-level features like canals and roads, bridges, ditches, and walls.
It was a very humbling moment for all of us, to be able to see, wow, that was under our feet the whole time and we really didn't recognize it.
Overall, the density of structures suggests a population of somewhere between 7 and 11 million people in the region, more than 1,000 years ago, which aligns with previous estimates. Maps, photos, and a catalog of what they found are in the journal Science. Nearly 100 years ago, the famous aviators Anne and Charles Lindbergh flew over some of the same swaths of jungle, taking photographs from the sky, partly in hopes of aiding archaeologists.
It was very early appreciated that under the jungle canopy, there was a lot to see. But if we could only see through the jungle canopy.
Now we can. And it's a foundation, Canuto says, for an entirely new era in archaeology. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
Take a guess. How many people in Florida can't vote because of a felony conviction? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In Florida, a person with a felony cannot vote after his or her conviction unless that right is reinstated specifically by the governor. This is also the case in Iowa, Kentucky, and Virginia. Nationwide, some 6 million people are disenfranchised because of these voting restrictions. In Florida alone, 1.4 million people, 10% of the state's adult population, can't vote because of a felony conviction, no matter how long ago or how minor. This November, there's a proposed amendment to the state constitution on the ballot, Question 4, that would allow a person convicted of a felony to vote after successfully completing all the terms of a criminal sentence, including parole or probation. Passage is not guaranteed. It will take 60% of the vote in Florida for this provision to pass. And this is a modest proposal. It excludes classes of former prisoners from its coverage, which it shouldn't. Why would we ever want to keep someone who has fully paid the price for his or her crime and wants to re-engage in civic participation by voting from doing so? Really? Give me one legitimate reason. The silence is deafening. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
Hold your ground! Hold your ground! Sons of Gondor! Of Rohan! My brothers! I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand! Men of the West!
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
It was a long, emotional day of testimony Thursday from both Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, who accused him of sexually assaulting her when they were teenagers. It was the first time the public heard from Ford, now a professor of psychology at Palo Alto University and a research psychologist at Stanford.
I am here today not because I want to be. I am terrified. I am here because I believe it is my civic duty to tell you what happened to me while Brett Kavanaugh and I were in high school.
In her opening statement, Dr. Blasey Ford told the story of her sexual assault at the hand of Brett Kavanaugh back in the summer of 1982.
Brett and Mark came into the bedroom and locked the door behind them. I was pushed onto the bed, and Brett got on top of me. He began running his hands over my body and grinding into me. I yelled, hoping that someone downstairs might hear me, and I tried to get away from him, but his weight was heavy. Brett groped me and tried to take off my clothes. He had a hard time because he was very inebriated, and because I was wearing a one-piece bathing suit underneath my clothing. I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life. It was hard for me to breathe, and I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me.
In his opening statement, Brett Kavanaugh defiantly denied the charges and called the accusations against him a calculated political hit.
My family and my name have been totally and permanently destroyed. I was not at the party described by Dr. Ford. This confirmation process has become a national disgrace. Since my nomination in July, there's been a frenzy on the left to come up with something, anything, to block my confirmation. This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election, revenge on behalf of the Clintons, and millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups. This is a circus.
Both Ford and Kavanaugh were 100% certain of their stories.
Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
100%.
None of these allegations are true.
Correct.
No doubt in your mind.
0. I'm 100% certain.
Not even a scintilla.
Not a scintilla. 100% certain, Senator.
You swear to God?
I swear to God.
Senator Patrick Leahy of Vermont asked about Ford's most enduring memory of the incident.
What is the strongest memory you have? Strongest memory of the incident, something that you cannot forget. Take whatever time you need.
Indelible in the hippocampus is the laughter, the uproarious laughter between the two, and they're having fun at my expense.
Ford testified that Kavanaugh was inebriated. Many of the questions to him dealt with his drinking.
Is there ever a time when you drank so much that you couldn't remember what happened or part of what happened the night before?
No, I remember what happened, and I think you've probably had beers, Senator, and so
you're saying there's never been a case where you drank so much that you didn't remember what happened the night before or part of what happened?
You're asking about, blackout. I don't know. Have you?
Could you answer the question, Judge? That's not happened. Is that your answer?
Yeah, and I'm curious if you have.
I have no drinking problem, Judge.
Yeah, nor do I.
Okay, thank you.
After a break, Kavanaugh apologized to Senator Klobuchar for his response to her. The Republicans brought in a sex crimes prosecutor from Arizona to question Dr. Ford as they wanted to avoid a repeat of 1991's debacle of the questioning of Anita Hill. Rachel Mitchell did all of the questioning of Ford for the Republicans, and she asked a few rounds of questions to Kavanaugh, but Lindsey Graham decided not to yield when it was his turn. He exploded in anger.
If you wanted an FBI investigation, you could have come to us. What you want to do is destroy this guy's life, hold this seat open, and hope you win in 2020. You said that, not me. You've got nothing to apologize for. When you see Sotomayor and Kagan, tell them that Lindsey said hello, because I voted for them. I would never do to them what you've done to this guy. This is the most unethical sham since I've been in politics. And if you really wanted to know the truth, you sure as hell wouldn't have done what you've done to this guy.
The Judiciary Committee is still scheduled for a vote Friday morning. Even if the committee votes him down, McConnell can still bring the nomination to the floor. The Senate is set to hold a procedural vote on Saturday around noon, which needs to pass with 51 votes. Vice President Mike Pence would break any tie. If Kavanaugh gets past Saturday, the Senate will vote on cloture on Monday and have a final vote for his confirmation Tuesday. And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From United Nations headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Deep divisions between the U.S., China, and Russia over how to handle North Korea were on full display at the UN Security Council Thursday morning, as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo continued to push for maximum pressure against the Kim Jong-un regime.
We must not forget what's brought us this far, the historic international pressure campaign that this Council has made possible through the sanctions that it imposed. Until the final denuclearization of the DPRK is achieved and fully verified, it is our solemn collective responsibility to fully implement all UN Security Council resolutions pertaining to North Korea.
American officials have spent months accusing China and Russia of violating UN sanctions on North Korea to no avail. And the U.S. now faces criticism from its former diplomatic partners, accused of failing to sufficiently reward Kim for suspending nuclear and missile tests. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov.
I would just like to remind you that any negotiation are a two-way street. Steps by the DPRK towards gradual disarmament should be followed by easing of sanctions. There should be reaction towards every action.
China's foreign minister had a similar message, saying the Security Council should be pushing North Korea to denuclearize through economic and political incentives, not coercion. Aware that two of its neighbors now want to ease sanctions, North Korea appears to have shifted its approach to nuclear talks, refusing to take more steps to denuclearize unless the U.S. offers concessions at the same time. Pompeo flatly ruled that out, but as he heads to North Korea next month to ready a second meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, the pressure on the U.S. to make a deal, even if it means blinking first, is only more likely to increase. Luke Vargas, The United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was right. We were going to be in the low 50s, so I wasn't so far off. We're going to have nearly the same temperature today, a high of around 93, 94. The low tonight in the mid to low 50s. The bad thing is that the weather forecast is for smoke, not haze, not low-lying clouds, not a cloud cover, but smoke. Thank you very much. The winds have shifted out of the southwest. Right now, a negligible 1 to 2 miles per hour will remain light and variable through tonight. Pick up tomorrow, and that will then be shifting out of the west at 5 to 10 miles per hour. But the bad thing is that it is, for some reason, blowing in the Klondike fire that reignited just a couple of days ago, and we have smoke once again in southern Oregon and northern California. So darn, I was having such a great time with all that great weather. I didn't really know how long I could take it, and well, do I dare say nature has a way of kicking you in the butt? Is a wildfire possibly? Well, part of it is man-made. Well, we will remain with this smoke, though tomorrow we could get a little bit of it cleared out when it shifts out of the west at that 5 to 10 mile per hour clip. A 40% chance of rain, thunder showers, possibly bringing an inch of rain Saturday, and then trickling off Sunday, and then another spate possibly on Monday. So I'm actually looking forward to that. As I stated before, we don't mind lightning and thunderstorms as long as the lightning doesn't create forest wildfires, and the rain puts them out if they do. So we always would like to have that. Well, ragweed pollen remains high. The air quality is at index is at 72 parts per million in the moderate range. Well, we were so hoping to stay in the good and hopefully get down into the healthy range. So I'm keeping the windows closed today anyway. The daytime UV index is moderate at 5. The pressure is barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.8 inches. Visibility is down to 3 miles because of the heavy smoke, and relative humidity is at 48%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Well, London is 62 degrees and fair. Paris is 65 and partly cloudy. Rome is 77 and sunny with a wind advisory. And it looks like they may be getting gusts up to 50 to 60 miles per hour, so be careful. Yikes. Kiev is 64 and fair. Kabul is 70 degrees and fair. Hong Kong, 76 degrees and clear. Tokyo, 67 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia, is 60 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California, is 55 and cloudy. And New York, is 56 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And I should also mention that there was a 7.6 earthquake in Indochina, or was it Indonesia? And a tsunami warning was called off. So good for that. I don't have any more reports on damage, but it's pretty extensive. It was at that magnitude, or amplitude, as I think they would say. So we will check in on that. And that is Weather from Around the World, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Michelle Gomez of Think Progress brings us this first offering here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. A U.S. appeals court upheld a Louisiana law that requires doctors who perform abortions in a freestanding clinic to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital, despite its resemblance to a Texas law that was struck down by the Supreme Court in 2016. Opponents say the law could limit abortions to just one provider. Well, that's like picking winners and losers, isn't it? And everybody loses. In a 2-1 ruling, judges with the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans, a circuit that has only gotten more conservative under Donald Trump, argued that the Louisiana law does not impose the same substantial burden on abortion seekers as the Texas law. By striking down Texas's admitting privileges law in Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt, the Supreme Court resolved some certainty around the undue burden standard, albeit there is still continued judicial discretion, thus underscoring the importance of retired Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy's replacement, as he was often the critical swing vote in abortion cases, and in this reporter's opinion, exactly why it was brought again. Unlike in Texas, the majority ruled, according to Courthouse News Service, the act does not impose a substantial burden on a large fraction of women. Okay, only a small fraction, not a large fraction. And I suppose you have to define what is. Well, almost all Texas hospitals require that for a doctor to maintain privileges there, he or she had to admit a minimum number of patients annually, said Judge Judy E. Smith, a Reagan-appointed judge in the opinion, joined by Judge Edith Brown Clement, a Bush-appointed judge. Few Louisiana hospitals made that demand. The ruling estimates less than 30% of Louisianans will be affected, and at worst, one doctor at one clinic will be forced to stop performing abortions. Oh my. Anti-abortion activists say admitting privileges are necessary for safety because they'll never have an abortion, and they're looking out for your safety. Yes, they are. Don't you like beer? But such a law isn't necessary because if a patient really needs to go to a hospital, any doctor, any person can bring them to an emergency room. Moreover, abortion is safe. Indeed. As Think Progress's Casey Quinlan points out, you're less likely to stay overnight in the hospital for abortion than having your wisdom teeth removed.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers. C'est tout.
Finishing up here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays! Woohoo! Is an article out of Reuters. Now, Justin Trudeau saying that Canadians are tough negotiators is just the kind of thing that could cause Trump to, go to war with Canada. Carpet bomb him. I'm serious. You got to be careful about what you say. And Donnie hates Justin. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said on Thursday that the U.S. is finding NAFTA talks tough because Canadians are tough negotiators. Trudeau's comments comes a day after Donald Trump said he had rejected the Canadian Prime Minister's request for a one-on-one meeting, though Trudeau's spokeswoman said no meeting was requested. Well, Donnie Two Scoops loves to lie to make a point, doesn't he? The Americans are finding that the negotiations are tough because Canadians are tough negotiators as we should be. Trudeau told reporters on the way into a regular weekly cabinet meeting in Ottawa, but a good fair deal is still very possible. We will not sign a bad deal for Canadians, he added. And I should say that there is a poutine trade surplus. They export more poutine than they import. Or a like product, really. So, and good thing too. Poutine could be the gravy French fry dish that sweeps the world. Okay, well, I'm not very happy about the GOP Judicial Committee members there. Thank you so much, Grassley, and all the rest of you. Democrats, quite a few of them walked out, and good thing for that too. Well, we're going to have to bug out of here because it is the end of our broadcast period for the day and for the week, but Netroots Radio will broadcast on for all that breaking news as it breaks, so we will visit with you on Monday for River City Hash Mondays, and do stay tuned to the rest of the weekend to Netroots Radio, and we will visit with you on Monday in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.